We're looking today at Psalm 58, and I need to give you a health warning or a spoiler. This is tough. This is very difficult. For many people, this will seem quite offensive. It is one of the hardest of the Psalms for the modern Western mind to come to terms with, and I think for the Christian to come to terms with. Because it is, as the heading in many Bibles says, a prayer for vengeance. And we're told clearly in Old and New Testament, vengeance is mine, I will destroy, says the Lord. It's not for us to make those judgments and take those actions. But here is David, and he is deeply, deeply distressed, and he is angry. And you will find some of what he says pretty appalling. And there's no excusing some of what he says other than his utter devastation and horror at what is going on around him. And in some way, words aren't the easiest way to deal with this. You know that the famous painting of Edvard Munch, The Scream, it's a bit like that. You can't put it into words. This is just horror. Or if you've read Heart of Darkness or seen the film Apocalypse Now, just the horror, the horror. That's what's going on here. So be warned, Psalm 58. Do you indeed decree what is right, you gods? Gods is a funny word, difficult word there. It isn't the normal Hebrew word for gods. It's the normal Hebrew word for gods with two letters missing, and it's not used elsewhere, and we don't know exactly what it means. Is it a way of saying gods in quote marks? They didn't have them in ancient Hebrew. Is it, as some translations have attempted to say, mighty ones? It's a difficult word. People who think they're gods, it's people. Is it people who take to themselves the power of gods? Do you indeed decree what is right, you gods? Do you judge people fairly? No. In your hearts you devise wrongs, your hands deal out violence on earth. Now, in some ways, I suppose he's talking about politics. He's talking about leaders, dictators, generals, people like that with great power over others. And he's talking in language of right and wrong. And a lot of politicians and leaders and so on say, well, there are subtleties, there are grey areas, we have to compromise on this and that. There will be sometimes collateral damage and all the rest of it. And David won't have that. He's talking in right and wrong, very, very clear, oppositional language. The wicked go astray from the womb, verse 3. They err from their birth, speaking lies. David says in Psalm 51, when he's confessing his sin with regards to Bathsheba and Uriah, I'm a sinner from my birth. So he knows he too is a sinner from his birth. The wicked go astray from the womb. They err from their birth, speaking lies. They have venom like the venom of a serpent, like the deaf adder that stops its ear. Lots of experts, naming snakes in foreign languages is difficult. Probably cobra is a better word than adder for this sort of snake, so that it stops its ears so it doesn't hear the voice of charmers or the cunning enchanter. It's a wild animal that isn't tameable, if you like. Oh God, break the teeth in their mouths, tear out the fangs of the young lions, O Lord. This is where the vengeance is coming in. David is seeing the horrendous behavior of dictators, rulers, generals, despots. He's seeing the wickedness with which they apply false judgment And he's saying, God, break their teeth, tear out their fangs. Verse 7, let them vanish like water that runs away, like grass, let them be trodden down and wither. Let them be like the snail that dissolves into slime. Again, snail is a difficult word. The original Hebrew is hard to translate. Snail is just possible. Others would say an early abortion. That which is born far too early and doesn't survive. Let them be like the snail that dissolves into slime, like the untimely birth that never sees the sun. That would make sense. That makes verse 8 a verse of parallelism. Let them be like an early abortion that dissolves, or untimely birth that never sees the sun. This is heavy, heavy, ugly stuff. Sooner than your pot can feel the heat of thorns, whether green or ablaze, may he sweep them away. The righteous will rejoice when they see vengeance done. They will bathe their feet in the blood of the wicked. People will say, surely there is a reward for the righteous. Surely there is a God who judges on earth. David is so appalled at the wickedness of despots. He needs to see right done, not wrong. His heart is crying. His words are immoderate, we could say. His language is simply destroy them, destroy them. And this happens. Good people debated over whether to blow up Hitler or attempt to assassinate him. Good people have said that President Putin should be assassinated. These things are very difficult when there is horror in the air and in people's feelings and thinkings, when there is cruelty and injustice and wrong being done, when the rulers and the leaders are just plain evil. What do you think? What do you do? What do you say? How do you cry to God? Well, this is how David cries to God. And he's saying, Lord, this must be stopped. This evil must be stopped. Vengeance must be done. These people who are shedding blood, their blood must be shed, and the righteous will rejoice when they see it, says David. But then verse 11, people will say, surely there is a reward for the righteous. Surely there is a God who judges on earth. And of course there is a reward for the righteous, and there is a God who judges on earth. And vengeance is his, not ours. But some sorts of sin and crime and wickedness are so appalling that good people will recoil and be lost for words at the horror, and as having to wait and be patient for the righteous God to judge rightly and to execute vengeance appropriately. Take it away and pray. Amen.